Memory about Imam Al Hussain salam goes back when I was a little child, maybe at around the age of 5 or 6, remembering my respected mother, may Allah bless her, taking me with her to women majalis. And I also remember vividly at around maybe the age of 7 or 8, on the day of Ashura, listening to the maqtal on a cassette tape of Sheikh Abdul Zahar Al-Ka'bi, may Allah bless his soul, and reacting to it with a lot of tears and emotion. So these are some of the memories I have of my early days interacting with Imam Al-Hussain salawatullahi wa salamu alayhi.
Alhamdulillah, my first memory of Imam Hussain was when my parents used to take me to mosque during Muharram especially, and I used to sort of wonder why at that time people were wearing black and all the rest.
My earliest memory is when I was 12 years old and I was taken to the Hussainiyas. It is the first time I remembered the majalis and remember the pain and suffering of a personality in Islam named Imam Hussain.
I remember 8 or 9 years old. We used to do latum in the street.
I always wondered why people cried for him. But as I grew a bit older, I understood what made him different.
I still remember our first recitation was in the ladies' side, where my mum held us up to the mic, and we recited our very first Noha.
Imam Ali alayhi salam tells his son, Al-Imam Al-Hassan, son, anyone who tells you your shortcomings in public is trying to humiliate you. But anyone who tells them to you privately is trying to respect you.
I grew up in a religious household where there was constant remembrance of Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam, and especially Al-Imam Al-Hussain alayhi salam. I remember my mother, for example, bringing me some books, children's stories about some of the great personalities in Karbala, such as Al-Hurr bin Yazid al-Riyahi, Ali al-Akbar, Al-Qasim, Abu Fadl al-Abbas alayhim salam, and some others. And I would be reading about those to learn more about these great personalities. So Imam Al-Hussain alayhi salam, in the house I grew up in, was constantly there to the best of my parents' ability, as it's noteworthy to mention that I lived at a time and a place where it was not so convenient to attend the majalis of Imam Al-Hussain alayhi salam due to fear of persecution, and hence, to the best of our ability, my parents would try to teach me and educate me about Al-Imam Al-Hussain salawatullahi wa salamu alayhi. Moving to Canada, I was in my pre-teens age. I arrived to Canada, to the city of Vancouver, and I remember my first day of school, going to school, and prior to our migration to Canada, my parents made sure that I attend some English classes just to learn a few words and vocabulary before I migrate, or we all migrate. So I remember the very first day of school I attend as a new student there, and it's totally different environment, different atmosphere. And I remember a student approaching me and asking me, "Are you the new student?" And thinking like a robot, I had to process these few words. So it took me a few seconds, actually, like a processor, to go through my brain. Are you the new student? So it took me a few seconds, and then I processed it and then said, yes. Then, what is your name? Again, what is your... So that was an interesting experience. And then I attended these English second language classes. And from then on, then basically I started learning the language really quick, and moved on to junior high and so on and so forth. So these are some of the experiences I remember going through there. It's just a different culture, different place, different era. One major, for example, change was I came from a boys-only school, and here there was like a mixed school where there are no uniforms. So I came from a uniform place. So here all of a sudden I find that children are free to do whatever they want. And I remember also the level of education was a bit lower than what I came from. So whenever the math teacher would speak, I would understand what he's talking about. In fact, I think the level was a bit lower than what I had gone through. So these are some of the issues. And of course, a whole new environment, a whole new set of friends, and so on and so forth. Upon moving to Canada, to Vancouver, the first thing my father did is inquire about the existence of a Hussainiyya. And he was informed of the existence of one where actually it was a brother who had the basement of his house transformed into Hussainiyya. And I remember about 2 or 3 months after us moving to Canada, it was the month of Ramadan. And because there were few families, so we started attending the majalis on a daily basis in Ramadan. And every family would basically cook for a day. So we had iftar every single day at the basement there at that Hussainiyya. And there were about, I would say, not too bad, I would say about maybe 100 or so people who might come, maybe less, I would say 60 people approximately who would come for a start. And I remember it was that year when I was requested once to recite Dua al-Iftitah. And I did. And then the next time I was requested to recite Ziyarat Warith. And then a brother who was actually in charge of the Hussainiyya, he told me that, Usama, you have a good voice. How about you recite again in Muharram, some latmiyat? Now, it's good to mention at this stage that by then I was already a reciter of the Holy Quran. I had learned the rules of tajweed and the styles, some styles of tajweed and tartil. So during the month of Ramadan, I would also recite sometimes, how they read a little bit of Quran every night at the Hussainiyya. I would recite also a few verses of the Quran, and that caught the attention of some of those people who were there. So then I was approached by some members of the Khoja community who were present in Vancouver, who had another Imam Barga or Hussainiyya they used to be attending. The one that we were attending, it was majority attending it were from the Iraqi, Lebanese, Afghani, and Iranian communities. It was all 4. And then you had some Khalijis who were studying as well, and they would attend as well. But there was another one where the Khoja brothers and the Pakistani brothers would attend. So I was approached by a few members from that community, and they asked me to start teaching in their madrasa, in the weekend school. So at a year or so later, I started teaching in the madrasa as well. So from that year, and I still remember, the year 1412 was the first year I recited in Muharram some latmiyat. And that same year, I started teaching in the madrasa, in the weekend school. Being a teacher in madrasa and attending the majalis of Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam constantly at the Hussainiyya and the Imam Barga helped increase my knowledge until in the late 90s, Sayyid Mustafa Al-Qazwini, may Allah bless him and prolong his life, saw me and encouraged me to start lecturing to the youth, having youth sessions. He came to Vancouver. He saw that there are no youth sessions being conducted. So he suggested to me and encouraged me to start lecturing to them, giving them some advice. And I still remember telling him that I don't really have much knowledge, so how can I start lecturing without much knowledge? He says, you grew up here, you know the mentality of these people, and they would rather listen to you than them listening to someone who may have the knowledge but has come from another part of the world where he does not really understand what those guys, what they are facing, what they are going through, and just feel, they will feel disconnected. So he encouraged me. Now, being a teacher in madrasa, I gathered some of the information I used to be teaching about, some of the history, some of the ethics, etc. And indeed, we started having youth sessions on Friday nights. And that's basically how it kickstarted my lecturing career, let's say. At the same time, by that time, I was already reciting latmiyat, being invited here and there. And so reciting Quran also, very kind of, I would say, semi-professionally, and being invited here and there as well. So at that stage, I was already reciting Quran. So, and then latmiyat. So I guess my progression, if we may say, began with the Quran initially, and that the barakah of the Quran and the blessings of the Quran opened the door for dua, and that opened the door for the khidmah and the servant of Imam Hussain alayhi salam by starting with latmiyat. And me teaching in madrasa, again, that opened the door for me to start lecturing as well. So that's kind of how the progression made over the years. After finishing my bachelor's degree in chemistry at the University of British Columbia in Vancouver, Canada, I moved to the United States. I moved to California. And one of the main reasons I moved there is the presence of Ayatollah Sayyid Murtada al-Qazwini. May Allah bless him and prolong his life as well. He is a very well-respected scholar, very knowledgeable, and a very humble man. I wanted to study with him. And I remember going to see him, and in fact, he actually approached me. He approached me and he said, Usama, you're reciting latmiyat, mashallah, very well. And in fact, his majlis was among the first majalis that invited me. And he said that I think you need to improve your classical Arabic a little bit further, your fusha, so that you can improve your Arabic grammar. And hence, when you recite, you'll recite even better. So you'll avoid making mistakes. And I said, I would love to. The Sayyid said, I am willing to teach you. And I said, I wouldn't miss this opportunity. And that's how it started with Sayyid Murtada al-Qazwini. May Allah bless him. So we began with Sharh ibn Aqil, and he started teaching me. And I remember his modesty, where he would come and open the door of a school that he established in Los Angeles, a full-time Shia Islamic school by the name of City of Knowledge, which is still running until this day and age. And he would come and open the door just for me, so that he would teach me for about an hour or two. And then he also taught me some lessons in tafsir. Today, similar lectures of his are being offered in the haram of Imam Hussain alayhi salam, and they're being broadcast on several satellite channels, were being viewed by millions. I remember back then, he would come to offer these same classes, but there would be only about 4 or 5 people attending. And I would feel so sorry that here's the wealth of knowledge here, and who's not even asking for anything in return. Like, we're not even paying him anything, we're not even giving him any gift. It's really taking his time. And in fact, he was so interested in these classes and concerned about them that I remember at some point his brother, Sayyid Abdul Hussain al-Qazwini, lived in Los Angeles at the same time. He had to miss one Friday. He sent his brother. He did not cancel the class. His brother came to teach a class, to sub in, let's say, for him. That's how much he was concerned about these classes, and he wanted people to be dedicated. When he saw dedication, he also showed a lot of interest to teach. And other lessons as well we started learning from him, but one important aspect I learned from him is his akhlaq. The way he speaks, the way he lectures, his modesty. He would cry on the minbar from his heart, genuinely. And that's something that really affected me and moved me. It is not just about learning fiqh and usul and, for example, nahu and etc., some of the teachings that are lessons are taught in Hawza, but rather it is the interaction with the teacher that is so important. Another lesson I learned from Sayyid Mustafa Al-Qazwini, who was my mentor in lecturing, is that his modesty. Sayyid Mustafa Al-Qazwini, may Allah bless him, I remember him calling me sometimes on my cell phone, leaving me a message, and at the end of the message he would say, "This is Mustafa Al-Qazwini." You know, not even Sayyid Mustafa Al-Qazwini, Mustafa Al-Qazwini. His father, Ayatollah Sayyid Murtada Al-Qazwini, when he would call someone, leave a message, he would say, "This is Murtada Al-Qazwini." You know, a great akhlaq, you know, a great manner. This is something that I learned from him, you know, about this modesty of theirs, humbleness. So the Qazwini family played an integral role, I would say. Through Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made them as a means for me to, alhamdulillah, start lecturing. They motivated me, they encouraged me from their father. Ayatollah Sayyid Murtada Al-Qazwini, may Allah bless him and prolong his life, to all his children, his sons as well, and his grandchildren nowadays. Serving Imam Hussain alayhi salam is an honor. Not only an honor, but it's also a tawfiq, a success that not everyone succeeds to do. Some people try to be servants of Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam, but for some reason they may not get the chance or the opportunity or the success. I personally find that it's a great honor and joy to serve the cause of Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam. Now, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala blessed me with some talent, maybe with my voice, my training, such that I can maybe use them in ways to stir people's emotions about Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam. Plus, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala provided me with some unique opportunities now that I'm thinking about them. For example, in year 1413, that's a year after I started reciting Latmiyat. 1413, we went to Iran for the summer. And it just so happened that that year, in 1413 Hijri, the months of Muharram and Safar coincided with the months of July and August, which is exactly the summer holiday. And I remember I arrived to the city of Qom on the 6th day of Muharram, 6th day of Muharram, the year 1413. When I arrived there, I inquired about Mullah Basim al-Karbala'i. I had heard there's Mullah Basim al-Karbala'i. At the time, many people have not heard of him. And he was reciting at the Husayniyya al-Karbala'iyya in Qom, in a street called Guzar Khan. So I was introduced to him by a fellow brother, a mu'min brother, who introduced me to him. And the brother who introduced me to him is actually Sheikh Rahman al-Ha'iri. So back in the year 1413, I met Sheikh Rahman al-Ha'iri, who currently lives in London. He introduced me to Mullah Basim. Upon being introduced to Mullah Basim, I asked Mullah Basim if he would be willing to train me to recite in al-Husayniyya al-Karbala'iyya. And he said, I would be more than happy to do so, however, that we have to get the consent of the Husayniyya itself. So I spoke to the person in charge, and he said, no problem. So it was said that on the eve of Ashura, Laylat Ashura, I would recite with Mullah Basim at Husayniyya al-Karbala'iyya in Qom. And Mullah Basim at the same time told me, observe what I do, and learn from what I do. And that would really help you. Remember, this is the era of internet and, you know, looking things up and you can see, and this is prior to the era of satellite TV. So this is back in, you know, if you wanted something, you have to go get it. Or there were VHS tapes, you know, those big, large tapes, videotapes. But even they were not so common back then. So, in the sense with regards to these latmiyat and so on and so forth. So, the eve of Ashura, the year 1413, I recited at the Husayniyya al-Karbala'iyya in Qom. with the help of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Ahlul Bayt, and them making Mullah Basim as a means, who helped me out as well. And then I recited again 2 more times, the eve of the 18th day of Safar, the 18th evening of Safar, and the 3rd time on the eve of the 29th of of Safar as well. So 3 times I recited, 3 nights. But I followed Mullah Basim like basically his shadow for these 2 months. I irritated him a lot. He is a very patient man, a very humble man as well. He never complained, never said anything. And he trained me a lot, how to improve my voice, how to strengthen my voice, how to conduct the majlis, how to have confidence, etc., etc., etc. So all these opportunities, we believe in Islam, there is no coincidence. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave me all this tawfiq to serve Imam Hussain alayhi salam for a reason. Maybe Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants me to do this. Now I have completed a doctorate degree in chemistry. But I find a lot more joy and pleasure being called Khadim al-Hussein, the servant of Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam, or in fact the servant of the servants of Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam, than being called a doctor, for example. In fact, I'm not even used to being called a doctor, to be honest with you. So that joy that I tasted in serving Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam is something that I pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala truly from the bottom of my heart never to deprive me from, and never to take away that tawfiq away from me, inshallah. A personality that is very dear to me is Al-Baneen, salamullahi alayha. That lady is amazing, is to say the least. That lady, in her loyalty, her nobility, her sacrifice is just amazing. Here's a lady who is not ma'sooma, she's not infallible, yet she managed to achieve, through the love of Imam Hussain alayhi salam, and ascend such high levels and ranks where Allah blessed her and honored her in dunya and in akhirah. In dunya, her dhikr, her remembrance is all over. I mean, we have so many wives of Imams alayhimus salam, great women, mothers of certain Imams. A lot of people, if you ask them, who is the mother of Imam al-Rida alayhi salam, for example, a lot of people may not know. Or who's the mother of Imam al-Kazim alayhi salam, some people would not know. And so on and so forth, those latter Imams. You ask a lot of people, they may not know who their mother is. But almost everyone knows who Al-Baneen is. So that lady is unique. And this, I think, Allah honored her because of her sacrifice, her loyalty, her love to Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam. So to me, she is like this role model, this figure who demonstrates that the more you give for Imam Hussein in the world, the more Allah will give you in dunya and in akhirah. The more. So she sacrificed the most precious things a human can sacrifice, and that is children. It's very difficult to sacrifice your children. You love them more than yourself. You can sacrifice yourself, but maybe not your children. She sacrificed, and she did not even care. She really cared about Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam. It's not that she did not feel the pain. Of course she cried for them. She felt the pain for them. She would say, don't call me Al-Baneen anymore. But this lady, subhanallah, she's unique. And every time I've experienced major difficulties in my life. And one time I experienced a very big difficulty in my life a couple of years ago during the season of Hajj. And I remember praying to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and doing tawassul through this noble lady to save me. And after finishing the tawassul and the du'as, and doing tawassul through also Fatima al-Zahra and Imam al-Baqir alayhi salam, but after finishing my tawassul and my nadhr to do a sufra for Al-Baneen, if Allah saves me, within less than 24 hours I was saved. And the whole situation was resolved in ways I would not have even thought about. So al-Faraj came, or the ease came from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the barakah of Ahlul Bayt and alayhim salam and this noble lady Al-Baneen salamullah alayhi. So this lady holds a special place in my heart, and I really hope and pray to Allah that she accepts me as a servant of her children and herself and the family of Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam, and Allah bestows me His mercy in having her shafa'ah for me in this world, in the qabr, and in the hereafter, inshallah.